Perfect.
Know at 7:30
Okay,
or
perfect,
whenever it is.
perfect, perfect.
Okay. So I'm gonna get this,
Okay.
and we'll get these guys on the top.
Okay, so now, let me read this again. Properties, oh, okay.
Welcome to the GCI Conference Center. Please enter your access code followed by the pound sign. Thank you. Please stand by. If you are the chairperson, press the star key now. Please enter your chairperson passcode, then press pound. You will now be placed into conference. There are 5 participants in the conference.
We're ready. So whenever you're ready to call it to order, and then we'll do attendance.
All right. So that means everybody's on?
Hello.
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 Hey, give us 1 minute. We're gonna call it to order, and then we'll do attendance.
Okay.
This is the August 13th, 2020 Sewer Historical Preservation Commission meeting, and we're beginning about 2 minutes after 6 p.m.
And then the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay? We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
the
United States
of America and to the republic for which we stand,
For which it stands,
one nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
with liberty and indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay.
And attendance. Okay. Furlong.
Sherry?
Sorry, I had my mute on. I'm here.
Walkers. Okay, if he wasn't able to make it, then he was an excused absence. Word is excused. Kurtz.
Wolf?
Benoit.
here,
Lebrecht.
present.
Chair Cease.
Here.
And Wolf, one more time. No, okay. You have a quorum, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, let's begin by doing an approving of the agenda and consent agenda.
Okay. So we need a motion and a second.
So we need a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda and a second.
I make that motion. This is Lebrecht speaking.
Thank you.
I second it. Benoit speaking.
Thank you. Okay, moving on.
So are there any changes to it?
Well, I don't think so. We're going to discuss the resolution.
So then I'll vote.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll do that at the point at which we're discussing the resolution to the city with regard to not supporting the property sales.
So that'll
Or
be
change.
the resolution voting, but we need to
Exactly.
vote on the approval of agenda and consent agenda still.
Oh, we do? Oh, okay. Well, didn't they vote on that?
No, they did the first and second, but not a vote yet.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Terribly
Lebrecht?
sorry.
Are there
Okay.
any changes to it? Okay, hearing none. Lebrecht?
Yay.
Furlong? Sherry?
Yes.
Yes.
Chair Cease.
Yes.
The approval of the agenda and consent agenda, or the agenda and consent agenda have been approved. On it was the approval of the July 9th, 2020 regular meeting minutes on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk Stollard. Okay, moving on to,
Chair, Steve?
yes.
Sure. Yeah, this is Wolfgang Kurtz. I'm in attendance.
Oh, great. Hi, Commissioner Kurtz.
Okay, so then Kurtz. Sorry, we didn't know you were on. So approval of the agenda and consent agenda, Kurtz.
Wolf.
Yes.
Okay. So now the agenda and consent agenda have been approved.
All right. Moving on to item 6, special orders, presentations, and reports. We have no proclamations or awards. We have no city administration here, so we don't have a report from them. My chair report is that there's a lot going on, and our commission is doing a good job, and we're being recognized. And keep our ears open because the public is speaking up.
Chair, Steve?
Yes.
This is Commissioner LeBlanc. May I interrupt for a quick moment?
Yes, you
Sorry,
may.
Put my hand up. I just wanted to say that as far as administration goes, that Ms. Kingswood has been working even over the weekend with me over on this paperwork for this resolution. She's been very much in touch, very much involved, and is really responsible for that paperwork getting together. So she did let us know that she was not able to lead this particular meeting, in addition to the fact that we don't have her actually scheduled to be with us until November. So I'd just like to note in the minutes that she, in fact, has been exceedingly helpful. So when we do put no administration present, nothing meant but good on that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner LeBrecq. That's very, very important.
Okay. And then Chair Stace?
Yes.
So we did the approval of agenda and consent agenda and then moved into the reports, and we totally skipped over citizen comments because we don't normally have any, but we
Oh,
actually
okay.
do have one this time.
All right.
So if you're okay with me going back to that real quick.
Yes. Is that Carol Griswold?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was submitted after the 2 p.m. deadline, but as long as there's no objection, I'm going to go ahead and read it into the record. Okay. So Carol Griswold submitted a letter for citizen comments. Dear Historic Preservation Commission, thank you for adding Ordinance 2020-06 to your agenda for discussion. As this proposed rezone affects the Seward Historic District, I'm surprised that Community Development did not seek your comments prior to the Planning and Zoning Commission's discussion and decision on July 21st, 2020. The Planning and Zoning packet also did not include the map of the Seward Historic District or include 2017 Historic Preservation Plan on their consistency checklist, as it does with the Comprehensive Plan, Strategic Plan, and Seward Zoning Code. A lot of effort and many years went into that historic preservation plan. It and the Seward Historic District should be considered. The development of the original Historic Preservation Plan in 1996 was spurred by concern over progressive loss of local historical character, particularly within the downtown area. The applicant stated a desire to have a cell tower on her 30 by 100 foot lot, among other possible commercial uses. The Central Business District allows commercial satellite dishes, towers, poles, and antennas up to 16 feet in diameter and 75 feet high outright. Despite best efforts to blend in, a new cell tower would likely entail replacing the historic landscaping with gravel and surrounding the property with a 7-foot fence. This is incompatible with this lovely landscaped neighborhood in a historic district and is opposed by the adjacent property owners and neighbors. In addition to the applicant's desire for a communications tower, there are 47 other outright commercial uses allowed in commercial business versus 12 outright uses in multifamily residential. If the parcels are rezoned, any of these other uses are allowed. Vague commercial uses stated by the other applicant are unknowable benefits. The commercial business district does not require off-street parking, increasing demand for on-street parking. Commercial businesses may increase customer traffic that would support new businesses, but also impact the quiet residential nature of this block. Lot coverage is allowed to increase from 40% in multifamily residential to 100% in commercial business. Instead of a 20-foot front yard setback, none is required. There goes the landscaping that makes this area so beautiful. The Historic Preservation Plan does not support this rezone. Page 6, 3.2, Goals for Historic Preservation, encourage community engagement and preservation and community appreciation for Seward's history. Economically, the preservation of downtown and historic areas increases foot traffic and tourism, which enhances the patronage of local businesses. Promote preservation in key areas through designation and promotion of historic districts. Preserving traditions and landmarks creates a unique sense of place that encourages community building and allows all residents, old, new, or seasonal, to engage locally and create a connection with their surroundings. Physical preservation, maintaining traditions, and retaining an intangible sense of place were identified as important to the citizens of Seward. Communities that prioritize historic preservation can create a linkage to the past that engages and inspires people in Seward's historic prominence, unique location, and accessibility, make it one of the few Alaskan communities with potential to achieve these goals. This rezone is another progressive loss of local historical character, particularly within the downtown area. I urge the Historic Preservation Commission to vote against the approval of Ordinance 2020-06.
Thank you, Citizen Griswold.
So now we can go back to where we were at, which was the Jesse Lee Home report.
Jesse Lee Home. All right, so I have,
I'm sorry, Tanya, one more point of clarification. At what point can we address and or make comments to the citizen comment?
at the end of our meeting? At the end
I
of
can
the,
tell you that I will most definitely have a response in addition to that at the end of this meeting. Please reserve that time.
okay.
Or even during the resolution.
Yeah,
meeting.
during, Commissioner LeBrecq, we're going to be discussing a resolution and that we do not, this commission does not support this zoning change. So during that time, you can discuss what it is you wanted to bring up.
Good. Thank you.
All right, Jesse Lee Home. The latest is that the city attorney contacted Doreen Lorenz requesting that she sign paperwork giving ownership to the city. They did not realize that the Friends of Jesse Lee still own the structure. And of course, she refused to do that. Where we're at right now, I do not know. Moving on to the Fort Raymond subdivision district. Fred
Would
is
you like me to comment on that?
on the Jesse Lee.
Yep, Jackie's on the
Yeah.
line.
Yes, please. I didn't realize you were there, Jackie.
Yeah, I'm here. So, the Jesse Lee Home, just so everyone is under a total understanding that on August 30th of 2019,
Yes,
when the Jesse Lee Home or Friends of the Jesse Lee contract was not
renewed.
extended,
Yep.
it reverted back into the name of the city of Seward. The paperwork did not get filed, but it still is owned by the city of Seward and has been since August 30th of 2019.
Well, that makes sense because, of course, that council voted against it. They did not support an extension of the contract, and so that would be in the minutes, which would be in the record of the city.
Correct. And then an RFP council voted to go out to RFP for the demo of the Jesse Lee Home with the understanding to at least keep some of the wood if possible so we could build a wonderful memorial and keep as many aspects as we can. That has been given out and the deadline is Monday at 3 o'clock and bid opening will happen and then we'll bring forward the winning bid to council.
Okay.
Chair Spees, I have a comment on Jesse Lee.
Yes, Commissioner Furlong.
I actually sent you an email asking if I could mention this. I feel like Seward's most valuable historical
item is the Jesse Lee home, and so I guess it's neither here nor there at this point. But I actually ran across some information about preserving some of the details in the building. So I feel like if it's anyone's responsibility in Seward, it certainly is this commission's responsibility to perhaps take a camera and get some detailed pictures of things like sill and window frames, exactly so that it can be at least replicated accurately.
That's a good suggestion.
And I was going to
Hold on, let Commissioner Furlong finish.
I had it in mind to write some of these detailed questions and things, items to capture, but I had grandsons that are heading back to college, and that kind of interceded and took precedence. But I would like to write these things out, and I'll forward them to Jessica as soon as possible.
Okay. So, Commissioner Kurtz, you are a photographer. Would you be willing to do this?
Well, I do have some comments on this. First of all, I think there's been a lot of pictures taken. Going through and inventorying it, the structure would be, I'd be willing to do that. I don't know if we could get access to that level of detail, actual physical access, or I'm not sure. That would have to be a discussion with the city and the relevant departments about accessing the structure and getting in there, actually do it.
Yeah.
I have substantial photographs of the inside with pretty high resolution. I know a lot of other people do too. But the one thing I would like to point out is they did have a contractor, the Jesse Lee, go through and map that structure in 3D. And they have a 3D computer model of that structure.
Oh.
So somewhere, I assume, and I hope it's not lost, I can get it from the contractor if nobody else. In terms of preserving it in detail, and that kind of detail, as far as I know, that exists. Going through and trying to retain the details of the moldings and things like that is a different task. But anyway, that's all I got.
Thank you, Commissioner Kurtz.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I think Jackie had a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jackie? Or Ms. Wild?
To answer the questions that were just presented, we have thousands of pictures of the inside and outside of Jesse Lee. We've also, we have videos of it. We have renderings and measurements of windows. We have that. Unfortunately, due to the liability and the hazardous material, no one is going in that building. That's part of why, we literally, with this last report, it was specifically stated that the city should not allow people to go into it unless these waivers and things were signed. And so we have taken it just a step further that we are not going to allow people to go into it because of the hazard.
That's fair.
Commissioner Furlong, I understand that. Some of the details that I'm really interested in are exterior details.
And if I could speak, we have many photos, from all times that, I have them on my computer that we can just measure out with the program. So we have great documentation of the building.
So some of those are close-ups, so we could actually see how the sills were made and the angles and so on. Okay, thank you.
And, we've been working with a gentleman for the last year that is working on making a bronze replica of Mr. Benson. And we've gone down to pure details of measurements and pictures of even the steps that he's standing on with his flashlight.
Thank you.
It would be great if you guys could do that, a brass rendering of the actual home itself. But that's probably not available financially. Okay.
And just so you know, Benny Benson, the statue will be a life-size bronze statue of Benny Benson. And there are great pushes to have it, when it's done doing its tour through the museum, to have it brought back to Seward and housed here in Seward as a memorial.
So will that be up there where the home is, or will it be down there where Benny Benson Park already is?
The council has decided to, let's get through the first phase, and then the second phase will be a lot of historical preservation input, as well as citizen input of what to do with the land.
Okay.
But, just so everyone knows, my feeling is I would love to see the area turn into a wonderful park that's usable for everyone, and have that bronze statue be there.
Well, that makes sense. Any more comments on the Jesse Lee?
Yeah, just Kurt's here. I don't know if Brandon Anderson or any of the other drone operators around here have been on that property and flown the exterior of the building or not, but that's another possibility. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
All right. Thank you.
It's a possibility. We've already been working on Mr. Kurt.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, moving on to the Fort Raymond Subdivision District. This is something that Commissioner Wilkers was working on, and I'm not sure if you all know, but he had a heart attack last week. So we just want him to take good care of himself. Excuse me?
I said, what? That's amazing. I did not know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jessica's got a sympathy card here. You guys are free to come by during City Hall hours and sign it if you would like. Okay.
Somebody can sign on my behalf, because Commissioner LaRex, I would appreciate it. I'm not there right now. I've actually been there 3/4 of the time probably, but I'm not there tonight.
Okay.
Not there tonight.
Right.
So Cheryl, please, Chair Steve, can you reiterate a little bit of what he actually has been working on? What is the subject?
Okay, so the subject is the Fort Raymond Subdivision District. Our commission knows nothing, and he's been pursuing this for some time, and I don't know if he's been able to secure any information. Does that satisfy you?
Well, so who is it? I didn't catch that name.
Fred Wilkers.
Yes, and he was trying to get together with who?
He's trying to decipher what is going on with the Fort Raymond Subdivision District.
You mean what plans that the military has for that property,
Yes.
or what?
Yes.
I see.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
are you talking about the Fort Raymond property that used to have the old rec camp on it?
Yes.
So, number one, it's not a subdivision, it's just a piece of parcel of land. And the city has rezoned it to auto commercial and is looking at possible layout of the property itself and uses for it.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Wild. One of the questions that we had was, does the land have to sit fallow for some time in order to have any contaminants die off?
Madam Chair, there were some studies done, and those studies came back okay. It's not it's not contaminant per se, it's what's under the ground as far as water lines and different things leading in different directions or maybe dead ends.
Oh,
So, when you're trying to work with developers or anyone, it's really hard to subdivide off parcels and then say, well, we don't really know what's under the ground.
sure.
So there's a lot of that happening. So it looks like nothing's really happening out front, but behind the curtains, there's a lot of things.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Commissioner Furlong, are you happy with this updated information?
Very much so. Thank you. I like being included in the loop.
Yes, well, Mrs. Wild is the only consistent person that we've had from the administration. And for as long as I've been on this commission, the Fort Raymond issue, we just pass over at each meeting. So thank you so much, Jackie. Okay, moving on to the Certified Local Government Grant. Do you want to discuss this now, Commissioner LeBrecq, or do you want to wait until we get into the resolution for the city to accept it?
We can wait until you get into the resolution.
All right. There is no, okay, going down to the Seward Historic Inventory List, there's no update. Historic Overlay District, we're going to, if it's okay with you guys, we'll wait because we're dealing with that on a resolution opposing property that resident has requested be rezoned.
Madam Chair,
Yes?
can I just make one comment on that?
Yes.
Historic overlay?
Yes.
Just so the commission knows, I haven't been able to call you. I've been out due to an injury, but I spoke to my staff yesterday, and our goal is to put on the September 1st Planning and Zoning meeting to set a set number of meetings that would go coinciding with both planning and zoning and historic preservation, possibly
Good.
3 to 4 times a year.
Good.
And our goal is to work with you and possibly come up with a historic commercial district, a historic residential district, and overlays.
Okay.
So we would love to, I'm going to address that and put it forward to the Planning Commission on the September 1st meeting. And I would like to just let you guys all know that even though I'm not in attendance at your meetings, I do listen and I do know, and I would like us to be able to be all on the same page.
That would be wonderful. Yes, that would be wonderful. We attempted to reach out to planning and zoning, and we're told that we needed to have, our ducks in a row and everything written and recorded before they had the time to deal with us, and then nothing further was exchanged. So having joint work sessions is a great idea.
Yeah, I think that it gives us the ability to be on the same page. You can know what we're working on, we can know what you're working on, and together we can collaborate and come up with a really great plan that protects the citizens and the history of Seward.
Yeah, thank you so much.
This is Commissioner Benoit. I was thinking about Carol Griswold's comments. And one of the things that she mentioned was planning and zoning had kind of come up with this resolution to rezone
Yes.
that property, those properties. But in working through all that, I guess there's various plans that they look at, and there's a checklist, but the Historic Preservation Commission is not included
Correct.
at all in terms of collaborating or
Correct.
as part of the checklist. So I'm hoping that with this idea that you have, all of us to get on the same page, maybe we can also become part of the checklist and part of plans that are coordinated when decisions are being made.
Or even prior
And
to.
importantly, that's a slope that we all would like to have. In the times of a rezone with our code, there's specific timelines I have no problem adding a checklist that says that we've reviewed your historical plan, and if it coincides with that, but the historical plan is sort of trumped by the land use and zoning plan. Yes, we have a historical district. There are no parameters that state that, within that historical district, certain things can happen. And my goal is to work with historic preservation to possibly add development requirements within those historic districts that would not, not take away the rights of the property owner, but maybe have certain setbacks and certain requirements because it is in a historic district. We have a great plan, it's not an enforceable plan, so we have to go to code, and code trumps that right now. So it's something that we definitely have to work on together to come up with how we would like to see, we have a development requirement code, we have a zoning code, but we don't have an overlay historical district code. And maybe that's where we need to go, and that's why I really want to sit down with the commissions and be able to sort of banter that back and forth to see, how we're not taking away the rights and the restrictions and putting so many restrictions on people of owning homes in a historic area, and how we can help them preserve them.
Right, and I know, like, Sue Ward has been kind of working on the standards and guidelines that kind of help flesh out ideas for that kind of thing, and I've been helping her edit the document, so I know that we have some things in the works that we wanted to prepare so that we could kind of sit down and all work together, so we definitely are working on that, and then I love that idea of, like you said, of adding, on that checklist, like that our review of the historical 2017 plan is part of the checklist. And I know it's impossible to say, is it complying with the plan or not, because so far we don't really have any kind of real standards and guidance that are something you can look at and say yes or no. But like I said, we're working on it.
Thank you. This is Commissioner LeBlanc. First of all, thank you for your help. While Commissioner Ward is obviously super busy with personal things, I want to publicly say that I have called Ms. Wild myself for some general conversation and advice on things, and I found it to be absolutely invaluable. And I will tell you, and I'll talk about it more in my comments a little bit more later, without getting the details, to tell you that the time to make these decisions and to set some precedent is now.
Yes.
So I appreciate very much that we are taking an active role as a commission, but you're right, there's no teeth, anything that we currently have. We're working on it, we're working on it. Needs to happen. So I appreciate the historical plan. I want to point that out. It's being done with a huge amount of work. I was actually around on the latter part of it just long enough to say, wow, that looks amazing, not doing it myself. But it is a great source where we need to put some things without stopping land use for people, without discouraging development. We need to find a way to preserve our sewer history, which also falls into our whole CLG thing, our walking tour. In order to have a walking tour, we need to have preserved structures. But my point for my comment is thank you, Ms. Wild, for your support.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie.
This is Commissioner Cease, or Chair Cease. So we may not have a hard and fast code, but in code, our commission exists, and we are historic preservation. And I do think that when we are dealing with anything of historical value, which these lots are, that we should very much be a part of any decision that planning and zoning makes. We should be in the process. So, thank you, Mrs. Wild, for preparing that for us. Any other comments? All right, moving on to Rockwell Kent. So I'm still hoping that we will be able to celebrate the 100th anniversary of his first book on Friday, the 28th, which is Seward Founders Day. And Resurrection Bay Society, Historical Society, has agreed, if you approve it, if we approve it, to rent the pavilion. And they're going to have an open house at the museum from 3 to 5. And then, you know, Doug Capra is still willing to give a talk, presentation on Rockwell Kent. And I thought maybe, you know, 5 to 7, we'd rent the pavilion. But I reached out to find if it's, you know, to inquire whether it's available and how much it is. When the Pioneers rent it, it's $75 an hour. So that's the information that I have, which I realize is incomplete for tonight. Any comments? All right, moving on.
Commissioner, I would just say that if we can get that together, that whatever, you know, graphics or posters we make to do this, we should definitely put that on the Facebook page.
Yeah.
With our branding.
Yeah. Well, speaking of,
Kathy, were you
yes,
thinking of using that time, those 2 hours at the pavilion for Doug? Is that what
Yes.
the purpose?
Yes.
What's the purpose that you have in
yes,
mind?
yes. He, his presentation is, he's marked out an hour. He's going to talk for about a half hour and then open it up for people to ask questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, the next topic is Historic Preservation Facebook page. Commissioner Benoit, would you like to address this here, or would you like to wait until we get to your submission in the packet? Marianne?
Whatever you think's best, I'm not really sure what you mean.
I think you're getting Hoban Park and Facebook mixed up, because there's a Hoban Park
No,
discussion.
I know, but she's got,
I have a Facebook page update to
Yeah, yeah.
the packet.
yeah, exactly. So we'll just wait until that, all right? And then you can make comments then on it?
You're getting the two confused. So
I am
there-
getting the two confused?
Yeah, so the Facebook page report is on page 4, which is listed on the agenda, and then Hoban Park has a report that's mixed in with the Hoban Park discussion. So I think that's where you're getting confused.
Okay, well, should she address this as we're here right now? Okay.
Yep, that's the only opportunity.
Commissioner Benoit, would you go ahead and update us on the Historic Preservation Facebook page?
Sure. So as you can see, Jessica, thank you so much, Jessica created the page, and it's been up. Let's see. I think since July 7th, and since that time, or at least when she gave you this report, there have been 24 people that liked it, and we have posted 4 things.
Wonderful.
We didn't have any comments except for something that I submitted. And Jessica also let the city council know that the page had been posted and what our goals are. But I would appreciate anybody who's on this commission or your friends. But one of the things that I did was I sent out the page to all my friends to invite them to like it. So if you haven't been on there to like the page yet, please do, and let your friends know about it. So as we start putting more things out there, people become aware. I have some posts listed that these are posts that Jessica's going to put out in the coming months. And of course, if we get something together for the Rockwell Kent or Founders Day celebration, we should put that on. And all those posts are things we talked about before. Just so you know, there was one post on here the last one says, did you know that Seward has a historic district? I found a better map or a graphic in what it suits presentation. So Jessica, I'm going to switch out, I'll send it to you, I'll switch out that graphic I gave you because this other one is more zoomed in and clear.
Okay.
And Jackie may have something too that's even better. I sent you a note, Jackie, if you do have something for like a GIS map or something in the historic district, that you could send me, I'd appreciate it because I would also put that in the standards and guidelines that I'm working on. And then finally,
Mariana,
yes.
just so you know, I have Eric working, he'll get a hold of you because our plan is to hopefully do an interactive GIS link that will show all the historic areas to help you with your walking map in the historic district.
Oh, that sounds perfect.
Awesome.
Okay. And then finally, for ideas for future posts, one of the things that I was thinking about was because we're doing so much work and talking about Hoban Park and restoration, and we have things that we're planning on doing, that maybe we start putting some Facebook posts out talking about Hoban Park and the history. So if people aren't even familiar with Hoban Park or don't know what that beautiful park is called, they can learn something about it. So in the future, if we're trying to get community involvement to help do things like potentially help clean and paint and put up the fence as an idea, that we have kind of primed people with stories about Hoban Park and the history. So that was something. I don't have any posts created for that yet, but it's just an idea. But also wanted to throw it out to you guys and see if you have any ideas of things you'd like to see.
I love what you're doing. One of the things that I really love is that you ask in your posts, do you know what the Seward Historic Preservation Commission does? And another area, you encourage folks to volunteer and become a part of it. And regarding putting a post up for volunteers for Hoban Park, it would be great if we could do that for the CLG, for the commissions that we have, or the committees rather, that we have designated, and try to get some community involvement that way as well.
Commissioner Benoit, this is Commissioner Furlong.
Go ahead.
I just am wondering, maybe there's a good percentage of citizens that don't even know there is a historical commission. So I wonder if we could go to, there's that Seward newspaper online, and there's the one that's printed for free. I wonder if in community news we could make a comment about this Facebook page and just let people know if you're interested in learning about the history of Seward or the Historical Preservation Commission, check out the Facebook page.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And also, it just made me think that I could send a note about it to, like, the Chamber of Commerce and some other community sites.
And mention it at a Rotary meeting too, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Actually, I think I told them about it already, but I will do that.
And also, I wonder if somewhere on the city's webpage, maybe it's already on there. Is there a place for the Historical Commission? And so is this Facebook page included somehow so that people, if they are perusing what the city is involved with, can actually find out about this Facebook page through that arena?
Well, it actually is. It's an administered Facebook page. How much the city has links to it. on other parts of the city page, I don't know. But we do have a historical preservation commission page on the city website, so I'm not sure, Jessica, if the Facebook page is listed there. And if it's not, that might be a good place to add it.
It's not currently linked to there.
This is Commissioner Cease. Commissioner Furlong, just to let you know, there is no free paper. We received the paper free, but to publish anything in it, including its online presence, there is a fee. It's pretty expensive.
Okay.
But it still was a very good idea.
Yes.
Okay, anybody have any more comments? Thank you, Commissioner Benoit, for your work. It's wonderful.
You're welcome, thank you.
So moving on, we have public hearings and we have none. So for unfinished business, we have the 25 properties that we had identified, as wanting to work at least in part, as historical designations for our public walk around and plaques. So if would you like to discuss this?
I know Commissioner Furlong had put her thoughts in a laydown to all
Yes.
of it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so you guys probably don't even have that. Do they have this?
They had an email to them.
Okay, great. Did, commissioners, were you able to review Commissioner Furlong's edited Seward Historic Properties list?
This is Commissioner Benoit. I've seen her property list suggestion, some of which I don't really, I would need some clarification. I'm not sure exactly what you were meaning by some of this, but revised list, I'm not sure if I've seen that.
So this is Commissioner Furlong. I guess I could get a couple of clarifications. 3 properties come to mind right off the bat that I need, I guess, to be sure that I know where they are, or to be taught where they are. The Gebhardt House, is that on 3rd Avenue?
I don't know.
Okay, so that's a question I have. And then Standard Oil, all I can think of is Shoreside. Is there some other location that I'm not aware of?
Well, Standard Oil is down there at Adams and 7th or Adams and Belane.
Adams and what?
Belane, or what used to be 7th?
Lane?
Yeah. It's
Oh,
a B&B
okay,
and it's
I didn't realize that.
stucco.
I couldn't figure out where it was.
Yeah.
I have a comment. I'm not sure, Sharon, if you're aware of this, but there's a Seward historical site inventory spreadsheet that is basically an adapt of the 2017 plan. Also, there's been some updates to it. It's a spreadsheet, and I know that Commissioner or Chair Cease has given me a copy of this, and also to Ward. So it's a list of all of the properties with the detailed information, the dates, etc. that are on the inventory. So some of your questions, I wasn't sure if you've seen this or if anyone had given it to you.
No, I haven't. That would be helpful.
Okay, I can forward it to you tomorrow, or Mary Ann can?
Thank you.
Well, I just have a paper copy that you gave me.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I need to get
And
that.
I printed stuff because there's some things on your list here, like, for example, you said Burbach is not historical, yet it is on this historical site inventory with the information, the building date and things like that. So some of the things you haven't come up like questions. It looks like people have already done work and identified some of this as historical.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
this is Commissioner Cease. Regarding Urbox, of course, that was, that side of 4th Avenue burned. So all those buildings were lost, but from the time that they were rebuilt until now, they're in the next 50-year run. So it would qualify as a historic property. We just haven't identified anything beyond 42.
Down this historical list is 1941.
Yeah. So, commissioners, let's make a deal that we will individually review our 25 properties that we broke out when we were initially talking about a CLG and identifying the historical properties. And if you can please look at your emails and take a look at what Commissioner Furlong did, and be prepared for us to discuss this and make some decisions about, who we're going to prioritize and timing.
This is Commissioner Benoit. I had looked at this list, and one comment that I had was, I was curious, why is Hoban Park not on the list, considering it's, on the National Register of Historic Places, plus it's right next to the historic railroad depot, so it seems like it would be a perfect place to go on the walking tour right after the depot.
You are so right. It's not on here because we worked really hard, but we worked fast on identifying these. So if the commission agrees, we'll add Hoban Park as one of these properties to look at designating historical plaques.
Since it already has an interpretive sign,
Right.
you probably wouldn't have to do much except just put it on the list.
Yeah, and on the walking tour.
Create something for it.
Yeah, and walking tour. So yeah, that's a good idea. So I need a motion to add Hoban Park to
I move that we add Hoban Park to our list of historical properties to designate signage or include in the walking tour.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Thank,
I'll second that, LeBrecq.
thank you. Okay.
So adding Hoban Park to the list of historical properties for the CLG grant. Let's see. Benoit,
Yeah.
Furlong,
Yes,
Lebrecht,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Chair Cease.
Yes.
Okay, this has been approved.
All right.
I wanted to ask a question too. I saw that Sharon had this on her list. And I was looking at it as well. I didn't quite get like the library museum because it's a brand new building. I wasn't sure if having it on the tour was related to the fact that they were showing the earthquake movie, and because the museum was there, or if it was related to the building somehow, or is it just because you want to include the museum on the tour?
It's probably the latter. We want to include the museum on the tour, and of course the museum holds all the history of Seward besides its physical structures.
Gotcha. Okay, makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Commissioner LeBrecq, we propose that as a potential starting or ending point at one point to some kind of a walking tour. And would also drive people to the museum.
Thank you, Commissioner Lebrecht. And this is Commissioner Cease. To piggyback on that, we're not locked in to all of these properties. When we did this, we were, just talking off the top of our heads, trying to get this done so that, we could include it in a CLG. So, you know, just to put that out there.
She also mentioned neither, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just, I'm wondering if you guys have a copy of the walking tour map that was presented, it was about 10 years ago.
No.
By the chamber.
No.
I will send a copy of that to Jessica tomorrow morning.
Oh, you're,
And,
yeah. Yeah, no, I think I do, Jackie, but yeah, if you would send that
Okay.
to Jessica and she can send it out, that would be great.
And then we can also help with your grant with making maps. So it's less money that you have to spend, we can spend it within the city helping you with it.
That's terrific, thank you.
I also wanted to say to Sherry, I'm looking at your list here of other things that you were, you put out there to consider being on the list. When you get a copy of this,
Historic inventory?
Inventory, there are probably, I think there's a bunch of these things you have listed are actually on the list already. And you can look things up by the address. So for example, you're like 403 3rd Avenue, the house is around the corner. You can look up by the address on this list. So some of these things it probably already are on the historical list. But I guess when it comes down to it, your CLG grant obviously can't have all things on it. So your goal here is to try to narrow down which things should be on the walking tour, correct?
Yes, I feel like we don't want to bite off so much that we can't finish the project. So any historical locations that we include for signage, those should be, of course, the priorities. And anything is better than doing nothing. So if we have to narrow things down, well, some of this is ongoing. This is always going to be ongoing. And
Yes.
some of this can be included in later years,
Yes.
as a project.
Yes.
But, yeah, I think Chair Teeth is right. Let's take out some priorities so that I guess we have a committee. Somebody's got to go forward and address the owners of these properties and hopefully get their buy-in for this signage. And we need to get started on that.
Amen.
This is Commissioner LeBrecq. So, in agreement, you hit it on the head. We don't know what the 25 will look like because we don't know in many cases whether the owners will actually comply or want to be interested in actually having their property with a sign in their front yard. So that's the first part, so we'll have to continually pivot to that. We don't have to get it all done now. We do need to stay within budget. And you're right, we do need to get it started ASAP, but the first thing is going to be this resolution that goes before City Council. City Council has to approve this grant before we can start any work. And as soon as that approval comes, we can start immediately to start contacting. We are aware of the walking tour that does exist. Lee Poleski brought that up. I really appreciate the fact that you have a copy of that. And also understand that a lot of work was pre-done during that 10 years ago, so a lot of the narrative that we need to go on the signage has already been done. So the first step will, of course, be contacting property owners, which we can do as soon as we get this resolution through. You guys are right, hitting the nail right on the head.
Okay. Hopefully Jackie has what Lee Poleski was referencing. I'm kind of wondering if she has what I have, which is,
If not,
a simple map.
Copies of it at the museum, but I understand.
Yeah, that's what I heard, or the library.
Just a question, when it's time to do the walking tour, can you have if say a property owner has a beautiful historic building, but they don't want a sign out in their yard?
Yeah, I think so.
Can't you still say something like, this house is blah, 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 Second Avenue, and say something about the history. They don't have a sign in their yard, but people can walk by
Yeah,
and they can learn about the history without it infringing on maybe the owner's privacy, something like
Yeah,
that.
this is fine, you definitely can, you're gonna wanna have that conversation still with the property owners. I can tell you for a fact that I'm more than happy for people to come right up to the cable house and look at it all day long, and they do. But there are cases where people actually will go up to the front door and knock on the door. We do have some people, Van Gilder, for example, does not want anyone coming into their property. So we just have to think about how that looks.
Wonder if there could be a little thing on the sign or a little attachment that could be like, this house is not open to the public or something like that, so it kind of deters people from doing that.
Absolutely.
that's a great idea.
And it'll come at no cost to people as well too. It should
Yeah.
help them with promoting their places, and especially some of them that are also places of business.
Thanks, Commissioner Benoit.
Great comments.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready to move on? All right. So we're going to move into new business now. And I'm sure we're all equally excited as this is the resolution to send to City Hall to get them to accept and approve our grant, our CLG grant. So the actual resolution is it the beginning or is it the very end?
So it's
at the very end,
resolution, let's see, 2020-03,
Okay.
page 7.
So it's, page 7?
Yep. Do you want me to read the
And
title
8.
into the record?
Yes, please.
Resolution 2020-03, recommending council accept the 2020 State of Alaska Historic Preservation CLG grant number 20005, Seward Historical Tour, Public Education Signage Project. And then just a reminder before we start discussion, we need a first and a second, and then we can go into discussion.
Okay. So we do need a first and a second so that we can go into discussing this resolution.
LeBrec would definitely like to be in as long as it's appropriate on approving that resolution be moved forward. I so move.
Okay.
I
Was-
second it.
Thank you. So Commissioner Breck, you didn't make a motion to discuss it before we approved it. You actually made a motion to approve it.
He did it correctly. Yeah, you make the motion to approve it, and then you have the time to discuss it and make
Okay.
any amendments.
All right.
For voting.
Sorry. Okay, so I've reviewed this. I'm sure all of you have too. I'm totally okay and on board with this. I want to get it to the council so we can get our work going.
And I will just say, I talked to Miss Kingsland. Her goal is to get this turned in to the city manager tomorrow if possible. And then administration, so the city manager would decide which agenda to go on. So it might not be until the September 14th council meeting because the deadline for this next one was this past Tuesday.
Oh. Okay,
But we're gonna do it as quickly as we can.
okay. So Commissioner LeBrecq, one of my problems with this is the timeline. So because we're getting started so late now, September, will we be able to request an extension? And do we have to wait until the very end when we're panicking to do that?
In answer to your question, Chair, no ma'am, we cannot request an extension. It is a state grant and it falls within strict guidelines. They have been without the services and Ms. Ayers and of course COVID going on. And we just got this, not the city's fault or anything else.
Oh, no, I know.
This is the first
Yeah.
we've been able to get it.
Yeah,
We are under the gun of having to get this done as it is. If we get 25 signs done, that's great. If we get 15 done, that's great, but I believe that we'll get them done. The biggest part of it's gonna be the expenditure, so if we can at least get the signs in our hands under the cost that we anticipate, we can always install on our own beyond the deadline. Probably, I would imagine, and be able to show that the signs have been purchased and show the progress that has been done. But ideally, we need to finish the project within the time and the scope of what we've been allowed. So, I'm gonna tell you that we at least need to have all of our signs produced and then be in communication with them. They will allow revisions of projects during project time. So in other words, if you want to go, say, different sites, or if you decide to do a different amount of signs, and you say, I only want to do 15 signs and I'm going to spend less money, they will typically allow that. But you need to comply within whatever it is that they give you the money for. So unfortunately, it is what it is. It's not unlike any of the other grants that I've seen before, even for our own property. Sometimes you just don't get them for a while.
Thank you, Commissioner
So one of
LeBrecq.
the questions I have, this is Commissioner Furlong, is if this gets approved by September, are we lined up, or can we get lined up so that the holes can actually be dug at least in September or October, even if we don't have the signs in hand? Maybe getting, I hope we can go with that, with those stainless steel posts. If we could get
I'm sorry, go ahead.
If we could get those posts in the ground this fall, it would certainly help expediting us being able to finish within the timeline. The signs can be made over the winter.
That is correct. It could. There is some manufacture time, probably not a lot involved in sourcing and getting the metal posts, but I imagine that we could get that done. So,
Do we have to use metal posts, or can we use the treated wood?
the point was made to use metal because many times people have run into the wood posts. There was a signage, if you heard before, there was a walking tour at one point in time, and most of the signs came down.
Oh.
Simply from people hitting them in the wintertime,
Oh.
and getting plowed or whatever out.
Yep.
These metal ones are like the one that I have in our particular yard. They
Yeah.
will last probably beyond the year of the house. So
Okay.
we did go to that because we don't believe that the wood will be able to pull up, and then we will be redoing this all over again 10 years from now, which is something that we're trying to avoid. So our options to us are we install less than 25 times, or we install it 25 times. There is no option to extend the grant typically.
Thank you, Commissioner LeBrecq. So I'm in agreement with Commissioner Furlong on digging the holes. I don't know about being able to set the posts quite yet, but certainly what we need to do is we need to identify the properties and get out there and get, homeowners' permission so that we can dig the holes. Okay.
Are we ready to vote on it?
So are we ready to vote on passing this resolution so that the city can approve our CLG grant?
Yes.
Okay. So voting on Resolution 2020-03, recommending council accept the 2020 State of Alaska Historic Preservation CLG Grant number 20005 Seward Historical Tour Public Education Signage Project. Kurtz?
Yes.
Benoit?
Yes.
Lebrecht?
Tongi?
My apologies, I just jumped back on Commissioner LeBrecq.
So do you approve that resolution for the CLG grant, Lebrecht?
Yes.
Furlong?
You're asking me, I'm sorry to bounce off.
That's okay. Furlong,
Yes?
Chair Cease.
Yes.
This resolution has been approved.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, Commissioner Benoit, do you want to pick this up at this point? The next resolution with regard to our commission opposing the rezoning of those lots? Page 67?
Well, it wasn't last meeting, but the meeting before, we had a citizen come in, Megan, I think her name was.
So if
Yes.
we're gonna go to discussion on it, we need the motion first.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I did not do that correctly. In order to have a discussion on this, we need to have a motion and a second. Does somebody move that we discuss the resolution submitted by Commissioner Benoit opposing the rezoning of lots 3, 4, 5, and north and a half of block 6, lot 6, block 16, from multifamily residential to the commercial business zoning district.
So it'll be the motion to approve the resolution, then we'll do the discussion and any amendments.
Okay. So then, should you go ahead and read the resolution?
I can, yeah. You just did, but I can again. Resolution 2020-04, supporting the preservation of lots 3, 4 through 5, and N and a half of lot 6, block 16, original town site of Seward as multifamily residential R3. Is there a motion to approve resolution 2020-04?
So we can discuss this.
I motion to approve discussing it.
Can I get a second? Please?
If you get your second, if not, Kurt's second.
Thank you, Commissioner Kurtz. Okay, Commissioner Benoit, you're on.
Well, basically, we had a citizen come to our HPC meeting 2 months ago and alert us to this concern about the idea of changing the zoning so that the person can wanted to put in a cell phone tower. And so since that time, I had received comments also from another citizen with also concerns about this. And Cheryl and I, or Chair Cease and I were discussing it. So we thought that if this commission was going to support not changing the zoning, that we should be prepared for this meeting to have a resolution put together supporting
Just-
current zoning.
Just one moment, Commissioner Benoit. Commissioner Benoit,
Yes.
please, just a minute. Somebody has their phone not on mute, and it's making it difficult to hear. Let's try this again. Okay, Commissioner Benoit?
Okay, so, let's see, where was I? Based on the citizen comments that we received before and the citizen comments that I've received in the last couple of weeks, I put together this resolution supporting not making a change, or supporting basically maintaining the current zoning, using some of the comments that I had received, so that we would have something prepared to discuss, and we could decide if we wanted to support maintaining the current zoning. And if so, then we have something here ready to go. So I'm not sure if this is something, Jessica, you'd like to read, or so
She's-
that people listening in know what this is about, or how you proceed with the resolution.
Commissioners, are you familiar with this? Rissy Casagrande wants to change zoning on these lots in order to erect a cell phone tower up to 75 feet. And it sits between two historic homes. Do you want Jessica to read this to you?
This is Commissioner Levesque when appropriate time is there. Is Ms. Wild still on as well?
Jackie?
Ma'am.
I'm gonna, when I get an opportunity, I'm gonna address some things probably incorrectly about what zoning something to commercial district means. So, if you can comment on my inaccuracies, that would be great. But I'm ready to speak to this discussion when you're ready.
Now would be great.
So my concern goes beyond just the cell tower itself and rather to the rezoning, although I have some issues with the cell tower, especially the fencing and so on that we're talking about, and it changing the look essentially of that street and or of historic property. It also extends to the fact that I've become recently aware that when you have a central business district, there are restrictions that are lifted, especially height restrictions, which are no longer the same. I believe that you can build zero lot line in the commercial business district. You can
Yes.
basically take your whole lot over.
That's
I
right.
believe that you can also go up to 32 feet high with any structure, not just a cell phone tower, but an actual building of some kind can be 32 feet high. And I believe that you have a lot of restrictions that are listed when you build a central district. Let's just say, for example, that the tower goes up, and let's say that they built a really great looking fence, and the tower has trees around it, or I don't know what, let's say that it's not that offensive. Once the district and the lots change to that central business, they essentially could decide to build something 32 feet high by taking every bit of that property line, and you could take that little tiny little house instead, and you could essentially build a 32-foot tall building by the whole of that lot. Rezoning something in central business district is not the same thing as simply asking, can I build a cell phone tower there? And looking at that design in the pretty pictures.
Yes,
It represents something permanently
yes.
to a situation that becomes unsafe. And I have some serious concerns about anywhere. We also have some control right now, a little bit of control. We may not own the control of the historical commission, but there's some control over what can be built, or how tall something can be built, or under what guise something can be built, based on the fact that it's not zoned to do so. Once the zoning changes, we have nothing. We don't have a historical overlay with any teeth in it that prevents anything from being built. The city, by its own nature, has covenants and things in place because of the type of zoning. Once that zoning changes, the gloves are off. Do I have my dimensions right? Ms. Wild?
Yes, sir, you do.
That makes it back and think about that cell phone tower, that must be set. They could just say, next month, just the comments or whatever, we're not gonna build the cell tower, not gonna do it, we just decided not to do it, we're gonna do it somewhere by Nashville, or whatever. But then once it's been rezoned, 32-foot building, by whatever the size of that lot is, zero lot line, they go, whoop, right,
Yeah,
block the view,
yeah,
block the access, can do all kinds of things.
yeah.
I obviously have some of my own reservations about that, and or the historical home. And some of the facts in this resolution.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner LeBrecq. Are you finished?
Yes, ma'am, thank you for letting me speak to it. I'm obviously am pleased by this discussion. Not pleased by the content, but by the object.
Yes, me too. Commissioner Benoit.
Yeah.
You were going to say something about the resolution in response to Commissioner LeBrecq.
Oh, I was just saying, this resolution actually does address some of the concerns you brought up. It's like 1, 2, 3. I think it's the sixth whereas down. It talks about the central business district allows commercial satellite dish towers, et cetera, up to 16 feet in diameter, 75 feet high, despite best efforts to blend in. The tower would entail replacing the historic landscaping with gravel and surrounding the property with a 6-foot fence, et cetera, et cetera. And below that, it talks about that there are 47 outright commercial uses in the commercial business district compared to 12 allowed in multifamily residential. And that, I think there's something in here that talks about those lot lines as well. I have to read through it again.
That could be Casa Grande's submission. It's pretty detailed, as well as planning and zoning's discussion on this. And they did go through zoning, and I found some of the, some problems, some of which have already been discussed. Like, essentially, they lose a sense of their property. I mean, they don't own, 5 feet into the lot next to them, but they feel like they do because, there's nothing there. But if you put a structure there, it's right on the property line. And, it feels pretty crowded at that point. And another thing that I actually found pretty frustrating is Ms. Casagrande's comments, where she continued for the future of our city plan. Well, we've been a part of this. Prior to me, this commission has been here for a long time, and many years, and many people worked on that historic preservation plan. And again, I'm going to repeat, this is Seward Historic Preservation Plan. Our goal, our mission is to preserve history. And one of the things that, makes Seward a wonderful place to live and a wonderful place to visit is its small town historic character. And if we start to allow rezoning like this, I think that we compromise that. And as Commissioner LeBrecq said, once you rezone something, it's not going to be restored again.
I have to that area of Sweatman House is right there. And, I'm just new to this commission and learning about the history. But according to what I can gather so far, that's one of the prime examples of the Stucco Johnson houses in town. And he was famous. And it's so you basically would, those 3 properties right there could be basically totally all the vegetation removed, and who knows, a cell tower, et cetera, and it would all be right next to the Sweatman House. So how is that going to look?
Right.
For one of our great examples of historic architecture in town.
Right.
And those little houses across the street, I looked up on the historic inventory list, and I cannot find them. Maybe because we don't know much about them, but they certainly, when you look at those houses, look like they were probably built in the 40s. They look like they're historic houses, but
yeah, they were built for they were military houses during World War II.
Okay, so just, Commissioner Kurtz, can I comment for a second?
Yes.
So there's going to be a cell tower downtown somewhere.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is propose alternatives.
Yes.
Or investigate alternatives. There are, to my mind, having been in the business and more or less still in the business, several alternatives to constructing a new tower. there's different ways to skin this cat.
Yes,
So, and so I think instead of just opposing this particular proposal, would find a solution, a substitution.
that's an excellent
Although that's not
idea.
gonna please- That won't please Ms. Casagrande, but,
Well, that's what we have commissions for, and councils. I still think that Commissioner Benoit's resolution is good as far as we don't support changing from an R3 to a commercial zoning on these properties. But it would be great if we could, within that, suggest, other options. I was thinking about yeah. So do you know, like,
yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So Cal Alaska has been interested in that tower at their offices there is short, and they've been interested in getting that tower higher, raising the height of the tower with opposition. But realistically, as a site for co-location, that's ideal. There's a ancient city tower that is, I'd say it's at some measure, it's a risky site at this point. It's unfenced and out in the backyard, more or less, of the fire department. That could be reconstructed as a cell tower with the appropriate protections for the public. Those are just two off the top of my head that would be more felicitous in general, just all the way around, that don't involve, that are in more or less areas that have been customarily used for that type of activity and already have that kind of development there. So those are the two tower, quote-unquote tower sites, and then there's the rooftops, of course.
thank you, Commissioner Kurtz. Our administration, Jackie Wild, is here, and she wanted to comment.
I just would like the commission to know that on Tuesday at 6 p.m., the Planning and Zoning Commission is having a work session to discuss our cell phone tower code, as well as presenting a draft code. And specifically, I think that the waters have been muddied. Yes, the historic district is very important, but where to place cell phone towers is not per se a portion of what the historic preservation should be looking at. It's what Planning and Zoning Commission should be looking at.
Unless it's
So-
in our district.
Well, the district is covered by the zoning code, and that is what I said earlier, that the zoning code itself needs to be, historic overlay has to be a portion of code. So how do we change code? We write code, we get it in, and so the towers in general have been on the planning and zoning priority list for at least 7 years. And we've slowly worked forward, and I think that the draft that we are presenting to work on covers those questions that you have, and where we would allow things like this to be erected. We've also had multiple call-ins from AT&T, Verizon, to Alaska. They've all called in. They are listening, and this is the time that the community, the citizens, the historic preservation, and planning and zoning need to sort of band together and say, not here, this is where, because I know that Mr. Kurtz has that background and knows a lot more than even some of us, but we are up against trying to do a task that everybody thinks that we're doing because of this rezone. It is not because of this rezone. It is because over the last year we have had a lot of interest from other companies, and we wanted to make sure that we protect the integrity. But when planning and zoning looked at this application from the applicant, yes, it does say on the application, possible cell phone tower, but we had to not look at that and look at the requirements within code on whether this rezone was applicable. And, you know, there's that fine line when you are so stricken to balance out and protect, but also we have to abide by code. So that is why, you know, it wasn't gone by lightly by planning and zoning. And it is something that it is, you know, code needs to be changed, it needs to be updated. It needs to have a section for historic overlay. It needs to have these things, but it does take time. But know that it's not happening. We are working on it, and anybody is more than welcome to attend our work session on Tuesday night. It's in the community room over in the library.
So, Mrs. Weil, what do you think about Commissioner Kurt's suggestions? Options?
Those have been reviewed. We have looked at them. We have worked with one of the companies. The co-location, the towers, the upgrades that they're wanting to do were not suitable for the areas that we suggested, one of them being right behind City Hall. And, you know, I think that it's something that when the city has something to stand behind as far as an ordinance and code stating this is what we're going to tell you you can do, instead of having a bunch of companies come in and say, well, we know what's best for you, you do what we think you should do. So we are working on that, and, you know, at our last meeting, it was a discussion of why can't you know, talking about how the overlay and having them up against the hillside and going over the town. And so it's different types of conversations, and I think that, you know, like I said, there's been multiple locations that have been brought to us over the last year of, hey, we want to put a cell phone tower here, and us saying that there is a lot more than just allowing a cell phone tower to be put somewhere.
Thank you. Okay, so I guess we need at least a couple of us to attend Tuesday's meeting. Fellow commissioners,
And we will gladly send you the draft ordinance.
that would be great. That would be great. So, second question. How long is it going to take for us to draft, you know, our resolution for code change, including us, and how we see the importance of preserving historic residences?
So, you know, code, I like to tell people I want to, how can I help you, not how can't I tell you what to do, right? But I want to, you know, I am a firm believer that code is not written in stone, but the timeline, dependent on normally, like, let's just say our parking, our camping code, it took almost 2 years to do all the public hearings and do everything, come back and find a camping code that everybody agreed upon. And even at that point, it didn't cover everything that we should have. After that 2 years, we still were behind the ball. So I would say that to get together to, you know, put together a code in general and have it presentable, you're looking at anywhere between 6 and 9 months. And then you're also looking at, that's just to get it together, have enough community input, not just commission input, but make sure the community is involved. And then from there, you're looking at another possible 3 months. So a little over a year if we're, you know, if that's the only thing that's focused. Unfortunately, you know, all the code changes. And that's, again, why I said it would be really important to, you know, for us to start meeting, you know, at least 3 times a year so we can be like, hey, this is really important. The code says this, and how do we fix it? And so, you know, this all sort of snowballed with the rezone and cell phone towers and historic overlays, and it, because it is important. But with the pandemic and everything happening, I am a firm believer in making sure that we have every ability to make sure the citizens can be heard.
Yeah.
And have their input.
Thank you. I agree. Is there any chance that we can like put a stop on this, a moratorium until, we can get time to get with planning and zoning and do a change in the zoning so we can protect properties like these?
And unfortunately, this rezone, because it's already gone through, planning and zoning is in the direction of headed to the council. That would be a moot point for this. But, again, I keep stressing that it's not just something that's gonna happen overnight. Even for an applicant that came in, if they came in a house that's already zoned commercial business district and they didn't have to do anything and they came in and said, I want to put in a cell phone tower, there's a timeline that, it's not just, oh, I'm going to tear down a house, that takes time, but also the timeline of putting an application through and having it approved by not only us, but the government agencies that are involved with the approval, and I can't remember the acronym of it, but of cell phone towers. So they already have a 30-day timeline, and then you have a building permit timeline of 20 days, and then, so it's already sort of built in there. So it's not something that could just happen right the minute it's approved.
Okay.
If the rezone is approved, there's a 10-day area where it can be repealed, it can be, so you've got 10 days there, and then you've got an additional 30 days on top of an additional 20 days, and then to start a project. So there is timeline in there that helps protect, not only the applicant, but helps to protect the city and everyone. And, I don't want to tell people what they can't do with their property, but we want to try to help them as much as possible. And, I'm worried, I am concerned, and I've talked to Mr. LeBrecq about it too, that, if we keep going down this path, you're gonna have a lot of 3-story buildings and little historic houses in
Yeah.
between 3-story buildings.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm strongly suggesting that the commission work with planning and zoning and us get together and start this historical overlay code.
That sounds great.
Commissioner Cruz here, I have a couple questions for Jackie while she's on the line. This might be better, is it okay for me to pose them now?
Yeah.
So there's typically in these projects, there's several public notice periods that go out, one of which is the FAA 7460s. Have any of these projects been put through the FAA approval process yet?
No, sir, and we've spoken to representatives from that department, and that's partly where we found out about the 30-day requirement the minute that application is even put in. And that is an area that not only gives them the ability to survey the site, but also to work with the city on what their requirements are. And so that's,
We have critical air traffic specifically to the hospital through the downtown area, so that would be one consideration.
Correct.
And then there are other public notices, there's at least one other that I'm aware of that has a historical aspect to it where they notify, they ask for public comment on the impact of the project, and I think that's more of a federal level thing. But yeah, I think there's plenty of opportunities, through the development of these projects for the public to get involved, outside of just planning and zoning and historic preservation. So there's that.
Yeah, and like I said, if you look at our code, we have a very small section regarding cell phone towers. And that's why we're bringing forward this draft. It's been the heart and soul of quite a few commissioners on the Planning and Zoning Commission that, if we're going to have, and we're in an era where we're going to have cell phone towers, let's make them at least visually pleasing. Let's make sure that they're in areas that are protected. I had one individual contact and say, well, just put them down in the waterfront or down in the park. And we're like, I want to protect our visual as much as our historic. And so,
Well, but that's not gonna work for coverage for the technical considerations of the the licensees of those frequencies. They're gonna want it up at a high point, so, yeah, unless you want a lot of towers, you gotta.
yeah, and that's why, like I said, tomorrow morning, we will send you the packet, the whole commission, the packet. It will be, I believe it was sent to the clerk today. It might be on legislative history already, but we'll make sure that you guys all have a copy of it so you can review it. And again, we will send out, I have no problem sending out a number for the commissioners even to call in, because we will have that ability for commissioners. So I will send that so you guys can be on the line at the work session if you'd like.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we do have another good thing, and that is that this resolution is not going to go to council until their September 24th meeting.
September 14th.
Huh? 14th? Or CLG?
September 14th. They both.
Oh, okay.
I understand Ms. Watkins stated that is basically on its way. Is there any way to even stop it, or any kind of consideration by whatever our comments are? Sounds like it's well on its way to being approved.
Mr. LeBrecq, I don't know the wishes of council. I know that, we've supplied ample backup documentation, and we will also supply more from our work session for the commission, or for the council. The council, it's held for introduction on the night of the 24th, but will be open for public hearing on the night of the 14th. I strongly have told everyone, even the houses that are next to, that they have the ability to speak, they have the ability to give their opinion, whether it be in person, whether it be online or via email or be called. And, we gave that opportunity in this rezone. We sent out massive public notices because it was actually tabled or postponed at one point, so we could see if anybody else around there wanted to be rezoned. So we did a lot of that legwork, and I can't say how the council will vote on or do, but you do have until, for this resolution, if you guys approved it tonight, then it would be probably sent forward for the for the September 14th meeting. And then again, public comment is important.
Thank you. Can I, you mentioned that anyone can attend on the 14th. Is that something we'll need to register for, or with social distancing, is that something that will be allowed to attend?
So they're doing just like you guys are tonight. You have the ability to call in, or be called to be able to send in an email, and or is it just email? They can call or email, correct? Because I don't believe it will be in person at that time.
Okay, thank you for that.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, this is Commissioner Furlong. I have a question. Even if we pass this resolution, what good does it do?
Well, at least it lets the city council know that we are opposed. Actually, this is written in the affirmative, so we're saying we are supporting maintaining the zone rather than being against changing the zone.
So I guess I'm thinking we don't seem to have a whole lot of authority. We don't get to say so whether this happens or not happens. I don't think it's good to make our wishes known. Yes. I'm going to play the devil's advocate a little bit here. You guys had a really good discussion about cell phone towers, and I think you made a lot of headway in that regard. But as far as this issue is concerned, it seems like a bit of a rabbit trail, because this is really about zoning, planning and zoning, and so we could focus on that. And I just want to make a couple of comments. First of all, the town of Seward is definitely historic, and there's a great weight to it for the state of Alaska because so many people came through this town. It was the entry point. So there's no doubt about that it's important historically to the state of Alaska, the town is. The other issue kind of opposing it is very limited on area. And we're going to have to grow some way or another economically. And so, you know, we can say we don't want nothing at all to happen, and that's what a lot of people say. It's that old saying, not in my backyard. But if we don't grow, we're going to be so stymied. And so I guess I could go far enough to say that area on Fifth Avenue, first of all, Fletman House was moved there. It wasn't there originally, historically. So the whole street there is kind of been neglected, really. It looks neglected. And the city is going to have to grow somewhere, somehow.
Madam Chair, if I can,
In the downtown historic district.
Commissioner Benoit, what was that? Well, wait a minute. Commissioner Benoit?
I respectfully understand the idea of growing business as I have a business in the downtown area as well, so I may sound completely hypocritical. However, I will tell you that once we start encroaching on historic properties, there is no step back. And I can tell you that I have some knowledge of some additional properties that will be affected, quite possibly, with exactly what I'm talking about. So imagine the cell phone tower going away, and somebody building a 20 by 32 foot long building 32 feet high in that space you're talking about. Now you're talking about something completely different. And then replicating that in the next historic building and the next historic building. And then there's our little signs, I mean dramatic, but there's our little historic sign saying, the Fletman House was once here. It was moved here. And right next to that, a 32-foot building, large, completely obscuring any views, completely obscuring anything. If you're standing in front of your little sign, it looks like a little cartoon, a little CAD sign, and you're looking at this historic property, which Stewart placed so much importance on, and we've allowed completely building anything we want, anywhere, at the cost of being progressive. When we're trying to sell a walking tour, when we're trying to sell an experience to people of an historic Alaska city, which is one of the major reasons why Alaska was developed, with our railroad, with our commerce, with everything that we had going on. Do we place importance on our city? Do we place importance on a historic plan? I think we do. Can't take a step back. Nobody's going to tear down a 32-foot tall building, 15 by 20, just because we decide 5 years down the road that we made a mistake.
Thank you, Commissioner Lebrecht. Commissioner Benoit, you attempted to say something?
I was just commenting that understandable that we need to have progress and we need to have business, etc. in our town, considering I own 2 businesses myself, but we have a downtown historic district. So it seems to me that because we've designated that as the historic district, that it has importance for that reason, that we should be considering that kind of a priority in this historic district, and there's other places to grow. So all I was trying to say is that I understand that, the need to grow and to think about all that, but does it have to be in the historic district? That was my comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Benoit.
Can I comment?
Yes.
Yeah, it seems to me, this is just my impression, kind of my take on the situation. This is a cultural issue, and I'm just wondering if there's enough respect for the historical, the preservation of history. I just wonder if we're just kind of beating a dead horse here. If planning and zoning continues to, the public, there was a public process for this, but I don't think the public was involved. So, I hate to be so downbeat, but just wonder if there's much of a future for historic preservation based on these precedents that keep happening.
This is Commissioner Cease. I want to thank Commissioner Furlong for her comments, and you, Commissioner Kurtz. I do believe that this is worth bringing before the council. I believe it's very important for them to know what we as a commission believe and are standing on, and will be in our record, and should be in their record. And with regard to, this just continuing to happen, from my time here, we've not been involved with planning and zoning. The only thing that I knew about planning and zoning was that they got upset about the historic preservation plan because the commission had submitted it direct to council without going through them first. And that's understandable why they'd be upset. So with Jackie Wild's coordination, we're now going to actually be a part of planning and zoning at least 3-4 times a year. And maybe we should be receiving, zoning requests before planning and zoning actually votes on these things, so that we have an idea of what's going on, or at least properties that are in what we determine as our historic overlay.
I think Ms. Wild had a comment.
I just wanted to comment where Ms., is it Furlong? Ms. Furlong had stated, is there a necessary reason for you guys to voice your opinions? I believe firmly that
I'm sorry, can I just correct you for a second? Somebody has their mics open, there's so much noise, it's hard to hear.
Okay, sounds good.
So I just wanted to comment to Ms. Furlong that, when you ask, is there a reason that we should do this? I'm a firm believer that the council has appointed you as a commission to help with guidance. And when a situation comes forward, I would think that when presented with something from a commission, it's looked upon as this is a group of 7 people that we have appointed to a position to help us, to guide us in the direction that we need the city to be. That's what planning and zoning does. That's what PACAB does. That's what historic preservation does. And so I do believe that you need to have a voice. And if that voice is with either agreeing or not agreeing via resolution, that's very important and it needs to be done. I can't say for things that have happened in the past, but I really do want to say that, when I look forward, I see us being able to come up with a solution that helps preserve our history, but also allow people to do what they would like with their properties. And whether or not that is, having those development requirements. Yes, you have a historic district. We need to have more than just those words. And how do we do that? We move forward with trying to come up with a plan that puts a code together that gives us an ability to have it in our chapter 15, that says when a rezone comes forward that's in a historical district, that it be reviewed also through the historic preservation and so forth. Right now, the binding law is that it's through planning and zoning. So those are changes that can happen. It's not something that can't. It's something that we have to get together and be like, yes, we can do this. We can work together to make a code that's workable and understandable by anybody that's coming in and buys a house in a historic district and then goes, wait a minute, I didn't know that, I have a 0 lot line. I can tear this down and I can do that. There needs to be requirements. And, again, I keep stressing, I really feel that, we have a historic district and we have, but I would really love for historic preservation to look at, like I said earlier, a historic commercial district, a residential district, like work on those things, historical park districts, like we can do that. It's just the time, but we do need to put something in the code that gives the ability for those actions to happen, because right now it doesn't.
Right. So, this is Commissioner Cease. What I have read is that we can actually pull out a single property. For instance, let's just say the historic overlay was just downtown 4th Avenue. That's it, right? So we can, under, the historic preservation rules, we could call Jesse Lee Home all by itself historic district. So we can pick places. So I don't know if you're like talking about we have to pick like, okay, this block or this
No,
street.
ma'am. No.
Great.
No.
Okay.
To be honest, some of my vision is, having these larger areas that show their historic. So like when you're driving in, you can have a sign that's like this, you're entering into the historic commercial district, or you're entering into a historical residential district. But no, it doesn't make you be in a block. You could say,
Right.
oh, these 5 houses are historic for this reason, and for that, you can apply a development requirement or an overlay.
Thank you. Any comments?
I have one question for Ms. Wild. This is Commissioner LeBrecht. This is a silly question, but I don't know the answer. Once something becomes a commercial business district or something else of that nature, can it ever revert back to a residential district or to a different type of use? Or do we simply have to come up with a new type of district like a commercial business overlay?
You can change, you can petition or work towards changing the definitions of commercial business district within the city. But I have not, in my time, nor do I know of a time that anybody reverted back. In my mind, you want to move slowly to see, if you're rezoning, you want to move slowly. You don't want to just jump from one extreme right to another extreme, because once it's there, it's going to be very hard to go back or to move one down. So do it slowly.
Right.
Do the documentation and the research to find out. I am always stressing that we not look with blinders, and that we not look just at the next 5 years or the next 10 years, that we look at the next 50 years to 100 years. Like, is this how, we see Seward, and is this how we want to see, that development, future development use map, in my mind, is a draft. It is, in a perfect world, what a group of people came together and said, this is how we want our city laid out. But times change and things happen. And so with those things happening, we should always look at the fact that the historical factor, can we keep it in that ability to be like, well, I come downtown and this is the historic downtown of Seward. Maybe we build up a mountain, we build up the side and the city grows, but the historic downtown is in this location. And there's some historic houses in these locations, so it's important. But I don't know.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Ms. Wild? Any other questions or comments? Personally, I'm ready to vote on this resolution, and I'm ready to vote on it as is, and go to planning and zoning on Tuesday evening, and make my wishes known as a citizen with regard to, what?
Cell phone towers. Cell phone tower code.
Oh yeah, cell phone tower code. Would you accept that, Commissioner Kurtz?
Are we ready to
Which part of
vote?
that?
Okay,
Which part would I accept?
the resolution, and not including anything about a, cell tower or commercial use, but just on Tuesday night, go to the planning and zoning meeting, and as citizens, make our comments regarding cell towers.
Yeah, I just, the way I understand, just kind of digressing a little bit here, so what I understand from what's transpired tonight as far as discussion goes, this particular cell tower is this particular rezone is headed to council for a thumbs up or thumbs down.
Correct.
Regardless.
Correct.
Of any code.
Correct.
In the future.
Correct.
Yeah. Well,
But-
Campbell's nose is kind of under the tent then, but I would say, so you're talking about just dismissing this resolution?
No.
And this, proceeding?
No,
Oh, okay.
no.
I think what I'm understanding is she was asking if there were any amendments made before we vote on the resolution. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Because you had suggested, Kurtz, that we
We're just,
address the cell towers in here, as options, not just opposing, but actually offering other options. And I'm just saying, well, seeing how planning and zoning are going to be working on this very issue, cell towers, and our issue directly right now has to do with these properties being reverted, or rezoned to commercial from residential, historical.
yeah, well, in line with what Commissioner LeBrecht was outlining, was describing as far as possible land use and what the future might look like, I would say that we probably want to reaffirm our support for code and for protections for historic overlay, regardless of what's happening with this single rezone.
No, I realize that, and that's going to start with some of us, I hope, attending Tuesday evening's meeting with planning and zoning, where they're going to be working on a draft proposal for cell towers. But right now,
Correct, no, I understand.
But right-
That's kind of,
but right now, Commissioner Kurtz, what I'm suggesting is that we vote in favor of the resolution that we've been discussing, which is that we oppose rezoning these properties from residential to commercial.
right, with the exception of the one that's already went through. So yeah.
No,
so
no,
if we
no,
could just
no,
get a
no,
rereading
no,
of
no.
That exact resolution and get a vote going, that'd be fine with me.
Okay, but you're not understanding. This has not already gone through. It has to go before council and be voted on before it actually goes through, if they vote favorably. There is a hope, pretty far out there, but there is a hope that they may rethink this and come down opposing it. So, again, I'm suggesting that we vote I'm suggesting that we make a vote on this resolution as is.
Yeah, I agree. We should stake out a position tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it sounds like there are no amendments to it, so we'll go ahead and make a vote. Let's see, take a vote. So it is on Resolution 2020-04, supporting the preservation of lots 3, 4 through 5, and N.5 of Lot 6, Block 16, original town site of Seward as multifamily residential. Furlong?
Sherry?
No.
Kurtz?
Yes.
Benoit?
Yes.
LeBrecht?
Yeah.
Chair Cease.
Yes.
This resolution has been approved.
Thank you. Okay, so we have handled the resolutions. Other new business items. I've already, updated you on the Rockwell Kent Centennial. If that comes together, we may need to call an emergency meeting so that you approve funds for the rental of the pavilion. Okay, Hoban Park. Mary Ann, would you like to, take that away?
And Tyler and Tracy are both going to get on the call here in a minute as well.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Benoit, Deputy Clerk Stollard is actually calling Tyler Florence and Tracy
Peterson.
Peterson.
Yep, they're going to be calling in on here, so just give them a few minutes.
Oh, okay.
Good evening, I'm on the line.
Oh, okay. Hi, Tyler.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Commissioner Benoit, when Tracy does get on the line, could you take control of this topic? Please?
So it'll just be me tonight.
Oh, okay. So Commissioner Benoit?
Okay, so, let's see. I have two different things related to Woburn Park. The first, I guess let's talk about the site visit first. And then I have some updates with actually a couple of additional updates that have happened since I submitted these notes.
Sure. And apologies we weren't available to meet in person for that. But thanks to Lindsay, our crew member, for going out there. And Tracy's done a lot of subsequent follow-up research and sort of looking into the matter.
Oh, perfect.
Lindsay-
I really appreciate it.
Lindsay was-
being able to join. Right.
Yeah, Lindsay was great.
Okay, so basically it was myself, Cheryl, Terry Furlong, and Lindsay who attended the meeting. Nobody from the public. And we basically just talked about the history a little bit. We looked at the park, we looked at the, identified the parts of the park that were original, plus things that have been replaced. So for example, there's some, part of the wall on the west side is that wall is original, but the north wall, the fountain and the planters have all been replaced. We talked about historically what had been there based on the nomination materials, which included lilacs, roses. Supposedly there was benches there in the past, there was a birdhouse. We know from the history that the lilacs were basically used to be along the sidewalk. We don't know where the roses were. We don't know where the benches were. We don't really know where the birdhouse was either, except I did find out. I found an old photo, so I can tell you about that later. So I did find out where that was. So we looked at all the plans. And one of the discussions we had was in the nomination materials, it sounded like lilac. They were described as a hedge going along the sidewalk. So I did a little research, and it sounded like if you want to grow lilacs as a hedge, you plant them closer together. I think it's like 6 feet, 6 to 8 feet. And if you want them to grow more like trees, you plant them a little farther apart, like 8 to 10 feet. So we had a discussion about, okay, if we were going to do that, what do we want, trees or a hedge? And how far from the sidewalk would they need to be? And so, in talking with Lindsay, it looked like most likely you would line them up kind of in line with the existing bushes that are there, so that you'd be far enough from the sidewalk so it wouldn't interfere with the sidewalk. And we also had a discussion where Cheryl brought up a great point that even if it was described as a hedge in the past, that the park is pretty small. So maybe doing trees instead, so it's a little more open. You'd have openings between the trees that people could walk through, might help make it feel more spacious. So that's just kind of a decision I'd like for us to make tonight, if we'd like to do trees or a hedge. So if in the future, we actually try to plant these, we know what we're working with. A second topic we had was roses, since we don't really know historically where they were. We talked about, well, where could we put them? And so Cheryl had mentioned, how about the northwest and the southwest corner? And the reason for that would be because a lot of families with kids visit the park, and roses have thorns. It's like, okay, where can you kind of tuck the roses away so that kids running around, they're less likely to get stabbed with the thorns from the rose bushes. So we talked about those two places. The northwest corner is open right now, so that'd be easy enough to do. The southwest corner is the area right now. There's numerous plants, including elderberry. No, I'm sorry, high bush cranberry. It's kind of taking over that corner, plus there's a lot of native plants. So one of the things we talked about was potentially removing the high bush cranberry and putting the roses there in their place. We looked at the two spruce trees that are down there in that southwest corner. There's one that's bigger and one that's a little smaller. And so there was some discussion about, you know, the smaller one doesn't look quite as healthy, and it looks like maybe they're kind of crowded. Should we remove one of those or not? I mean, we have the discussion of, you know, regardless of what we think about the way things look, the important thing is what are the ages of these trees? Are they historic? And so I had talked about, you know, got a forester or friend that can come over and potentially core these trees and actually tell us how old they are. And just to follow up with that, I talked to him yesterday, and if it's okay for us to do that with Tyler, he said he could come over next week and core both of those trees, you know, the ages, and you can also look at them, you know, tell us like how are they doing as far as health-wise, especially that small one, and give us some recommendations. Then we continue, we looked at the other plants or the shrubs that are down on the, I guess it would be the southeast side. And there are, let's see, there's elderberries, which are native plants. There's a honeysuckle, which according to Carol Griswold is actually a heritage shrub. It's old, so that's an important thing to maintain. There's a mountain ash, and there's also this Japanese pea shrub, which is, come to find out, an invasive, non-native plant. I realize we have some around town, like at the library, and also at the Memorial Garden, or, yeah, at the cemetery. But what I found out about those is if you look at those, they're all kind of droopy. Those are actually different. They're grass that people have lovingly planted and trained to look like that. But the one in Hobart Park does not appear to be a grass. It just looks like the invasive species. So one of the discussions was maybe we could take that out and instead plant a lilac bush. And Sue Ward actually has historic lilac bush that she has said she would donate to us to put in. She just needed to talk to a neighbor that had given it to her, just that, you know, touch cases to make sure that was okay. So that was an idea with that. Let's see. Nobody seems to know about elderberries, you know, like how long they've been there or what the story is on that. I have been trying to round up some historic photos, and I did talk to Colleen Kelly of Resurrection Day Historical Society to see if they could find any historic photos they have of Holden Park. Because I was thinking if we could look at some of those, maybe we could see, you know, what vegetation was there in different years, and we might be able to tell some of these things. And she did.
Commissioner, I was just going to add that I sent to Jessica just recently to pass on to the commission a resolution and some historical legislative documents that I believe contain photos of Hoban Park circa from the 1930s, if that's helpful.
Okay.
I have not had a chance to email it out yet, but after the meeting I'll do that.
Cool. And so I did see a few, I saw Colleen the other day, and she showed me a couple things she'd come up with already. She's still researching, but come up with. I now know where the original birdhouse was. So if you were looking over the northeast corner, kind of as you walk into Hoban Park from the street, and before you get to the big ash tree that's there, it would be between where the ash tree is and the street. So it's actually open. There's nothing there right now. So that could be, if we wanted to put one in where it originally was, that was the spot. Another thing that was kind of interesting is you showed me a picture from 1934 that actually showed 8 different fences from the historic fence that Parks and Rec has. It was actually like a chain link fence. So that was pre the wrought iron fence that we have pictures of, which I thought was surprising. So apparently the one that Parks and Rec has in stores is not the first one. I'm guessing it's the second one. Okay, let's see. What else? We talked about the benches. Yeah, one of the reasons that I brought up to Colleen to try to look for photos, and I don't know if Tyler, what she found, has this, but I was thinking if we were going to, in the future, try to get benches put in, we'd like to, know what the historic design was that was there. And so far, I haven't seen any pictures that show any benches, so that's something we're kind of searching for. So we kind of walked along and thought, where would we put these benches? So we had a couple ideas. Looks like maybe there's room for 2 or 3 benches in there. And then we talked about stairs. Historically, there were stairs in the street that went down into the park. And there's an area right now, if you look, it looks like kind of a place where there was a section, I think it's opening the wall, it looks like where the old stairs used to be. And so the discussion was, if we put up the old fence, we would have to probably put stairs in there and some kind of railings to complete that. Because otherwise it's just kind of a drop off. So for safety, if nothing else, you need some stairs. We discussed the lamp posts. Right now I think there's 2, or maybe there's 3.
2.
Lamp posts, which I don't think are original. I think they have been replaced, but it looks like there's one missing. And I believe it was like on the other side of where the old stairs probably were. So that's something to consider, is if we do a CLG grant to get benches and do some other work, like maybe we could, see if we could get another lamppost made that looks like what's there. We discussed the fence. I went and visited with Tracy at the Parks and Rec warehouse and looked at the fence and took some pictures, which are included in this packet. I found that there were 15 pieces there. They're not very tall. They're about 7 feet long. And it looked like in general, we have about 108 feet of fence. They're about 16 inches high. The one thing that I did notice, since I wrote these notes that I decided to put out there, maybe Tyler can find out. When I went to see the fence over at Parks and Rec, there are 15 pieces. If you look at the notes that are in this packet that were written up by the architect from back at the time when they were first looking at doing this, they mentioned 19 sections of fence. So there are 4 sections of fence missing from what there used to be. And interestingly, when I was talking to Colleen from the Resurrection Day Historical Society, she said the museum has 1 section. So the four missing pieces, one of them has ended up at the library somehow. And I'm not sure where the other 3 are. But, maybe they're somewhere else at the warehouse. And so I just didn't see them. But that would be kind of a question. I think there was already some missing anyway because the architect's packet sounded like there was going missing since then. So if we can find those, it would certainly be better to use the original ones than replicas. So that's something to look into. Sherry, I know, mentioned when we were talking about all the safety stuff related to the fence that, you know, in the architect report about building this kind of guardrail kind of thing on the outside, and one of the discussions we had is, well, isn't it a safety hazard right now with nothing there? So that's good. I thought I'd throw that out there. We also had a question about a public restroom. Sherry was suggesting that the park should have a public restroom because there's no nearby restrooms. We, discussed that. Personally, I'm against the idea because of the aesthetics, plus I feel like the park is so small, there's really not room, to add something like that without taking up even more of the park. And Cheryl's comment was that there's a restroom in Zuni's and there's also a restroom in the Sea Life Center. Plus, of course, if there was a restroom there, somebody obviously has to maintain that, which I'm sure Parks and Rec, they're probably cringing, going, no, we don't want to, but I don't know.
So, Commissioner Benoit, can I make a suggestion real quick?
Sure.
So on page 90, we have the Hoban Park questions that were sent in advance to Tyler.
Well, the first one is on page 88.
The ones that I received are on page 90.
Oh,
Were sent to
okay,
Tyler.
all right.
So maybe we could go through and have him answer those questions, and then if you think of any along the way, then write them down, and when he's done answering those, you can ask any others that you have as well.
Yes, we can do that. Also, I have a couple of updates that have happened since I submitted this, which maybe I could just tell you what those are right now, because then there's a question in there we could add to this list.
Okay.
I had a Rotary meeting on Tuesday and told Rotary kind of about this project. Oh, well, let me backtrack for a second. I got permission. I found 2 historic lilac trees. One is at the Blaine House and one is at Red Rock Art Coffee House. I got permission from both owners to take shoots from those trees. And I also got permission from the Blaine House to collect some of the historic rose bushes. So basically, at this point, we're all set for the plants to put in the park. And then I also talked to Rotary on Tuesday about the project, and they are willing to come on September 8th and dig holes to plant the lilac. We don't necessarily have to plant them at that day, but they're willing to come out and dig all the holes. And I was thinking also, if Tyler was okay with removing that pea shrub, we could also do that day. So that would be a question to add to the list. If they're okay with Rotary digging some holes out there, if I meet with Tracy or someone else and figure out the locations first, and can we take that pea shrub out? Let's see.
May I make a comment on the pea shrub? One of the questions that we had for Tyler was, 1, can we remove it? And 2, would it be okay if Sherry Furlong did that? She has the equipment and she's willing, and we wouldn't want to wait until September.
Yeah, so if you want to go over these questions, we could do that right now.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Do you have the list in front of you,
Yeah,
Tyler, or do
Tyler?
you want me to read it?
Tyler, do you have the,
Just don't want to jump in too early.
Tyler, do you have the list in front of you of questions?
Yes, I do. have
Okay,
the
great,
list.
great. Okay.
Yeah, so just stepping back and sort of speaking broadly, if people, we love for, we're excited by people wanting to to work and help improve facilities, and we want to help facilitate that process. So we have a volunteer service agreement. That's basically all we need to have on file for anyone that's performing work at a city park facility. So I can send that document along. And then as far as the specifics of landscape design and which vegetation, so Tracy and I will make ourselves available to do an on-site so that we can finalize some of these details, because there were still some lingering questions about where exactly, and for some digging or which lands exactly. There were some concerns over potential adding certain vegetation and the root systems, and if there's enough clearance between those root systems and the sidewalks, and potentially causing damage to the sidewalks and items along those lines.
All right. We would love to meet with you.
Yeah,
Yes, and I'll, sorry, go ahead.
I was thinking if you'd like to do that, and if there's time, maybe next week, you guys and me and anyone else who wants to go, we could go out there and try to determine locations for lilacs. So that
Yes, that'd be great.
go ahead with Rotary's helping, then we be prepared. We can mark those spots out.
Yes, that'd be great. And again, we appreciate your patience as we're previously kind of in the midst of a peak of our camping season. It was a little difficult for us to kind of break away from that.
This is Commissioner Furlong. I'd like to make a comment along what we were just discussing. There were lilacs along the east side too, between the park and the railroad depot. And that seems like a good place possibly for a hedge. So consider that when you're out there.
Okay, yeah, we can look, because we were thinking about putting like that lilac, big shrub from Sioux, and where the Siberian pea was, and then there was a couple things, but also on the other side of that, a mountain ash tree, I think was where that historic birdhouse was. So that could also be something that could go over there.
Yes, and to speak a little bit more specifically to your question, so I think at our, at first sort of glance, I don't think there'd be any issue with putting up a birdhouse. Some of the vegetation that's being asked about, a lot of that seems very doable. It's just more about figuring out and sort of specifying location. The object that's up in the gray material that's up in a hole in the tree trunk.
Yeah.
Tracy actually did some research on that, and it appears that several years back, maybe about 15 years ago, an arborist recommended that material be placed there after, I believe, a branch fell off to prevent the ingress of water or insects that could potentially cause rot. And so now that it's grown into the tree, I think the recommendation would be to just
leave it
in order
absolutely
to prevent any further damage.
Yeah, at least we have a good reason now.
Yeah. And then, speaking of historic files, I mean, again, we've sent the research that we've been able to obtain, and I don't believe we have anything else on hard copy that's not available in the legislative history that we haven't already sent along, but we'll keep an eye out for that. And we'll also we'll do another search for any other fencing components that may be in the warehouse.
Cool, when you say you found some files, was it just like paper files, or did you actually find some photographs?
No, everything we found was already available on the legislative history. We just did the research and just obtained it. I don't believe we found any. I don't believe we have any hard copy files that aren't already available on the legislative history.
And you sent those over to Jessica for us, right? Tyler?
Correct, and you
Yeah.
may already have that material, but I'm just sending that along just in case you don't have it.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
And the concerns about the rose bushes, I mean, I think there's a variety of approaches in terms of landscaping design to mitigate, any potential accidental brushes with thorns and the like. So, I'm sure there's a way to accomplish that if the rose bushes are a priority. Is there any other questions I haven't covered?
I just thought of a question. Once
Sure.
we put those lilacs in, do they need to be surrounded by something like, some kind of a little retaining wall or rocks or something like that, so that like when the Parks and Rec folks are doing, weed whacking or whatever maintenance and stuff they do, so they'll like back down a little lilac tree, so it's more, obvious where they are, or like to keep scratching coming in. Like, I'm not sure if we should just plant them or if we need to do something additionally surrounding them.
Well, it does look like target practice when you're holding a weed whacker. But, no, we're pretty good. We typically have a gardener on staff seasonally, and we are pretty good about informing seasonal staff about what areas need to be mowed or trimmed, and then what areas need to be sort of more cautious around. But it is a consideration that if we need to erect something to sort of safeguard that, that's something we can definitely look into.
Tyler, could you address, I want you to forget question 2, address question 2.
So that's something we'd have to have the specifics on, basically. So we need to know exactly what trees are being asked to be removed from the park.
And that's going to happen when you and Tracy do a walkthrough with us, is that correct?
Correct, and we want to afford you all that opportunity, and that way we can, because we want to be able to help expedite this process for you and be able to make decisions in a timely manner.
Thank you. So, Mary Ann asked you about next week. Are we talking about doing the walkthrough with you and Tracy next week?
We are available.
Okay, great.
Yeah, well, my hope is that if you're okay with Rotary coming out on September 8th, and it would probably be lunchtime, like 12 to 1, that's kind of like when we do our service type things. If you're okay with them coming out and digging some holes, and if you're okay with, getting together sometime next week to mark off where the holes will be, then that would be perfect. That way I can, coordinate with them and make sure everything's ready to go. And then Sherry, if you wanted to, come and take that pea shrub out, maybe while Rotary's there, some people could help, load up the slash into your truck and stuff like that.
That's fine. So if somebody kind of knows what the weather report is, let's pick a day next week for a walkthrough.
I don't know. It's Seward.
I'm not sure, but
Well, we have rain jackets, so we'll be there regardless.
Okay. I do want to add one caution. This is Commissioner Cease. Because we are in the works with our own CLG grant that is current and is necessary to get implemented, I do want to be cautious on committing too much energy to Hoban Park at this time until we have completed the tasks involved in the current CLG grant. But I mean, planting, some lilac, starts and whatnot, that's fine. And removing some, things, if it's not too time sensitive, and too much energy, I'm completely on board with.
This is Commissioner LeBrecq.
There.
If I may, harking back to the earlier comment about signage for Hoban Park, it would make complete sense if you were just even to put these starts in for us to dedicate a sign or two from the CLG grant to the fact that we have these historic bushes or trees or whatever there. You could tie those two things together, just simply reallocate where one or two of the signs would go. And then you'd be achieving both things at once. All you'd be talking about would be moving over the starts and then making signage that's appropriate.
Okay?
That's perfect, and one of the things I was thinking about before, you had mentioned, oh, could we get some of this stuff done by next spring, so it could kind of coincide with the, I guess, the initiation of this project with the signs, and I was thinking, no way could it happen, because I thought for us to get anything done, we'd have to actually create and submit and get money for a CLG grant to do all these things, but with planting, we can make a difference that visibly people can see, and we're getting the community involved with Rotary. We can do all that without a CLG grant. And just on that same note, another thought that I had was, we've been talking about putting up this historic fence, but before that would happen, it needs to be cleaned with wire brushes and it needs to be painted. And before, all the stuff was on a CLG grant, but I was thinking, maybe we could get the community involved. Maybe we could give different sections of this fence to different schools or to ABTEC or, different people that are willing to take a section of fence and clean it and paint it so that the community's getting involved. And who knows, maybe we could get the community to help put it up so the community has buy-in. I mean, obviously, you need a CLG grant to buy, like benches and stuff like that, or construct pieces of the fence that are missing, or create the guardrails that the architect designed. But there's other things that we could do without going through that CLG process, but work on this project, I guess, and involve the community. So that's just a thought. And I'm not sure if that addresses your concerns, Cheryl, where my understanding of what you're saying is you don't want to get involved in doing another CLG grant when we're trying to deal with this first one that's time sensitive.
Well, it's even more than that. It's that I don't want to divert even community energy away from volunteering to accomplish the things that we've already committed ourselves to. So that's just a caution I wanted to put out there. But I do want to interrupt and ask, do you have any other questions or comments for Tyler so we can let him go if we don't?
This is Commissioner Furlong. I do. I want to keep, while he's so willing, let's keep the ball rolling. I have one question. If Tyler is able to determine if that fencing is wrought iron or cast iron, that's a question he can address if possible. And also, I just want to go ahead and suggest today, might as well keep the ball rolling, and let's maybe go with Monday for a walkthrough.
Okay.
If we can check into the fencing of construction or what style it is, and I believe Monday would work.
So let's.
I need to look at my calendar as well, but just so you know, in the notes by the architect, they already identified the fence as wrought iron, and if you look in the package here, the commission back in 2006 already sent a letter to SHPO talking about the wrought iron fence and how we could treat it, what needs to happen. They responded and said, if it's wrought iron, it cannot be blasted, it needs to be cleaned with wire brushes and then painted, and they listed the specific types of paint. So I think we already have that information, and it's included in the packet.
Thank you.
So Tyler, what time on Monday would work for you?
How does 1:30 sound?
Okay. And Mary Ann?
I'm not available.
Oh, you are not available. I'm sorry. Okay.
I could do like 3:30 or 4 o'clock.
Yeah, 3:30 works.
That's perfect. Hey, it's not the 19th, is it? Is Monday the 19th?
No, Monday's the
Great.
17th.
Okay, good. Yep, I'm good. Okay. Any other questions or comments for Tyler? Tyler, thank you so much for taking your time and joining us tonight, and for the information that you sent to Jessica. And I will look forward to seeing you on Monday. And yeah, thank you very much.
Yes.
Likewise. Thank you, and appreciate all of your guys' efforts.
We appreciate yours too. Okay, Mary Ann, are you at a place where you are like you're done with Holden, or you want to continue? Because we haven't gone into the grant that you pulled up from 2006. So I don't know if you want to do that, like for the fence or what.
Can you repeat that last part?
We didn't actually go into the 2006 CLG grant, that information that you provided for our packet. And I didn't know if you wanted to continue your discussion, presentation on the information with regard to Hoban Park.
I was just looking at the Hoban Park update, which is in the packet too, that's separate from what we were just talking about, just to see if there's anything that I didn't bring up already, because I was trying to kind of read it into all of that. Let me just look at this quickly. Like I said, I mentioned that I got permission from both owners of Elaine and Resurrect Archie to collect the samples. Oh yes, that reminds me. We talked about we're going to meet and figure out the locations. I told you that my friend, the forester Mitch, is coming over sometime in the next week, I think, or 10 days, and I asked him if he would come to Hoban Park and look at those 2 spruce trees and tell me what he thinks about the health of those 2 trees and take core samples, which we can age those trees to see if they're, historic or not. And I asked Resurrection Bay Historical Society to look for old photos to help us try to figure out bench designs and the birdhouse location, which I've already found. I told you about the old fence. I told you about Rotary. September 8th is the date for anyone who wants to come. That's the date that Rotary is available to come and dig holes. So the other thing I wanted to bring up was, I talked to Mitch about how we could actually plant these successfully. And he told me, dig these holes. What you need to do is get some potting soil and some perlite and a little bit of sand. And once you dig the holes, you take some of the existing dirt and then you mix in some of this other stuff to prepare it. And then you plant these shoots. So what I was thinking of doing, if I could get the support of the mission to pay for this, is I could go on my own or try to find anyone who wants to come and go collect these shoots and actually plant them in little pots to kind of get them ready. So once the holes are dug, then I can bring them down and we can plant those shoots. Because part of what has to happen is that he said, you've got to go collect certain size shoots. You have to dip them in rooting hormone and then plant them in these little pots. And he said, ideally the best thing is if you could find someone with a greenhouse to winter them and then plant them in the spring. But if you can't do that, you can just go ahead and plant them this fall. But to prepare the hole and prepare these plants to put in the ground, we need to purchase some potting soil, some perlite, some rooting hormone, and maybe some sand. You know, I'm sure I could probably get all that stuff at the Ace Marine or whatever. So I wanted to find out, you know, if you guys are okay, I'll just go buy that stuff and I'll set it up and, you know, either go on my own or get some help and go collect these shoots, cut them, plant them in some dirt until they're ready to go in, you know, the hole. And then if I can get reimbursed those materials, that would be great. I don't know how much they would be, because I haven't checked the prices yet, but I'm guessing probably under $175 to get all that stuff.
So what I'm hearing is that we need to, somebody needs to make a motion to, okay, like $75 or $100 or, you know, a budget less than $100 for the soil, perlite, sand, and rooting hormone.
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to make the motion, but I'll go ahead and make the motion that we purchase the potting soil, perlite, and sand and rooting hormone needed to prepare lilac shoots for planting.
LeBrecq,
I second it.
oh, you go ahead second.
Okay. So I'm totally lost. What was the motion and what was the amount in the motion?
Okay, so the amount is under $100 because we don't know. And the motion is to, you know, for the commission to allow Mary Ann under $100, a budget under $100 to purchase soil, perlite, sand, and rooting hormone for lilacs in Hoban Park.
Okay. So allowing Benoit to purchase potting soil, sand, perlite, and rooting hormone for lilacs in Hoban Park under $100. LeBrecq,
Yay.
Furlong,
Yes.
Kurtz,
Yes.
Benoit,
Yes.
Chair Cease.
Yes.
This motion has been approved.
Okay, I believe with that, we are almost done. So, we had no citizen call in. We took care of the citizen comment earlier.
You're skipping over the last one, which is discuss the implementation.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Implementation
Okay,
of
right.
the CLG grant.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk Stollard. So the last item under new business is discuss the implementation of the CLG grant. And, you know, we talked about creating committees at our July meeting. And, you know, in the notes in this packet, you can see what each of us volunteered for. So really, I guess we don't really need to discuss it. It was, you know, we know where we're at with, you know, the grant itself. We've passed the resolution to go to council to give us the go to begin our work. Any other comments? Okay. No informational items or reports. Okay,
Excuse me. This is Commissioner Furlong. I guess this would be a good time to note this. I should have when we were first discussing it, but on page 52 of the packet, there's a date in here in the middle of the page. It says historical preservation work sessions. This little paragraph says will be calendared out to increase frequency of work and stay on a timeline. Our goal is to complete all signs and install by May 2021, which is within the stated CLG timeline of September 2021. Well, in another place, I read that all this work must be done by June 30, 2021. So I don't get where this September date has come from.
okay, so the September date is for the city council to approve the resolution that we're sending over for them to approve and get the CLG started for us. We cannot do anything until the council approves it. That's September
This date
14th.
is September 2021, next year.
Okay. And you're on page 51?
52.
52. Okay. Okay, May 2021. September 2021. Okay, so, Tangi, do you want to address this?
I don't have it in front of me, I can tell you this. May 2021 is intended to coincide with the beginning of the tourist season. It is a soft date in the sense that we intend to get it done by May so that as visitors, obviously pre-COVID having the idea, so that as visitors would arrive, we would have signs in place. We hoped and needed to be done with by September to close the grant out and be doing grant reports. But we specifically, because of the tourist season, we're setting an internal date of May. I don't remember the June date, Furlong. You may be correct in that. There may be something correct there. I'm not sure. It's been reviewed by the state. But the May date is an internal date for us to get things up in time for the tourist season.
And the absolute drop dead date is September 2021, correct?
That is the time the final reports would be due. That is correct.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the scope of the grant. I'm not sure what June was. I don't have it in front of me. If there's a, I'll be happy to review. You may be correct, and maybe there could, of course, be a mistake there, but that's what May's about.
Okay,
We shoot for September. We're not going to take things for sure.
So write this down, Commissioner LeBrecq. It's in Appendix A, scope of work. Read that over.
Certainly. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Furlong. Okay, so we've got no citizen comments. Okay, commissioners. I'm going to start with Commissioner LeBrecq because when we read Carol Griswold's letter, or no, when we were talking about the zoning, the rezoning, you said that you wanted to make a comment, and yeah, it was with Carol Griswold's letter.
I actually, Chair Keith, I've already expressed my very fervent comment earlier, and my only any comment would be that I appreciate all my fellow commissioners, and I apologize for my very ardent and loud arguments this evening. I'm obviously feeling very passionate about historic preservation and some of what I'm seeing happen. However, I know that my voice may be louder than others tonight. I apologize for that. I respect each of you, and thank you for allowing me to be part of the discussion.
I appreciate you too, as I'm sure all the other commissioners on this commission do. And like you, I am passionate. We all are passionate, or we wouldn't even be on this commission. All right, Commissioner Benoit.
Yes.
Do you have any comments for the end of the meeting?
Oh, let's see, well, I just thank you all for all the discussion tonight. We went over a lot of material, and appreciate the support for the resolution to maintain the current zoning in that neighborhood, and appreciate all your support on Hoban Park. And yeah, all good, thank you.
Commissioner Furlong?
No comment. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Furlong. Commissioner Kurtz?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody for their attention to detail, more attention to some of these details than I can summon. Like hedges and lilacs, a little bit out of my area. Plants and I are, I don't know how to characterize that. But anyway, yeah, no, thanks to everybody for keeping up with the Hoban Park, the maintenance of Hoban Park, obviously one of the jewels in the downtown historic district. And that's all I got. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Commissioner Kurtz. So I too want to thank each of you. And I had something that I thought was important that I wanted to say, but you know, I'm kind of getting old and it has left my brain.
And Miss Wild had a comment whenever you're done.
Oh, she's still here?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Jackie Wild, I am so sorry. I assumed when you physically left the room you were no longer here. Would you like to say something?
Oh, no. I would love to say something. First, I want to thank all the commissioners for the work that you're doing and the work that you have done. I would just like to make a comment on the Hoban Park. Ms. Lynette, if you guys are to plant lilacs, my suggestion is that you do your starts in 5-gallon buckets and have the hole built or just dug in a 5-gallon bucket depth. That will save you from the lilacs dying over the winter. I also want to stress that I would love, and I will send out the number for the commissioners to be able to join into our work session on Tuesdays, and hopefully we can start moving forward to come up with a great historical portion in our code.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Wild. Appreciate your input and your cooperation and your wisdom. And I also want to thank Deputy Clerk Stollard for her faithful recording and guidance in yet another meeting. And we will see you in September. And just a thought, if any of you are free on Tuesday night, please join the Planning and Zoning meeting so that we can begin to be involved as citizens, as well as the commission, but like Tuesday night would be as citizen for being sensitive to the historic quality of Seward in zoning. So with that, I will close the meeting. It is 9 p.m. Thank you.